This video is going to show you a solo Grandmaster Nightfall getting platinum rank while using blue weapons. I'm not permitting for people to use this setup. Certainly the subclass you should be copying in the build, but I'm just using blue weapons as it's something that I do on Grandmasters at the end of each season. Well, it's at the end of this season because it's a longer one, but when things are quiet I start doing odd runs like this. Okay, it's just part of my routine for content. So as I said, we're using blue gear, so that's a blue bow, kinetic bow, that's a blue fusion rifle, which is a rapid fire frame, arc, and a void rocket launcher in our heavy slot. Since there was a flag to pick up, the heroic public events, if you rally them you get your super. So what I done is, before I started, I actually just rallied that public event and I had my super, so I could optimize the super on the starting section. So as you saw, I just pushed the arc phalanxes, broke their shield with the fusion, immediately popped the super and took out all the adds apart from the champion. And now we're going to bait the champion here. We'll get a stun, a rocket, and a couple of fusion shots. That's getting him pretty weak. So you can see, even though the blue gear, and obviously they're not going to do the same amount of damage as some legendary weapons with like Vorpal weapon and really optimized perks, you know, you can still put decent damage, the output. Obviously we're doing the Blights back to front as we always do. In terms of our armor mods, we're using a elemental well protective light hybrid build. So that consists of protective light, of course, shield break charge, which we get we get the charge of light when we break a shield. We've also got elemental charge on. When we pick an elemental well up, we also get charge of light. We've font of wisdom and fire and ice. Fire and ice, when you kill a champion you get a fire and a stasis well. Obviously we're on solar, so that solar well, will then count towards us getting, you know, charge of light and the font of wisdom going, which gives us increased intellect for 30 seconds every time we pick up that. So we're getting our super quite a lot. We've optimized for a grenade build because we've got 100% discipline. We've bomber on our class piece, so that's a solar piece. As the solar nade's so important for this, and it's very good on bottom tree Dawnblade, that's the class we've picked, with the exotic helmet Dawn Cordis, which improves its burn damage, which is vital for this run, because there's a lot of solar shields, as you know. If you've watched like Shadow's Grandmasters, you'll know there's plenty of solar shields. There's 3 arc shields in total and only 1 void shield. So the shields are odd in this, of course, but they can still prove to be awkward, especially the void wizard if you don't have a void weapon on, which is why I went with a void rocket. Obviously my loadout is hindered because I'm using blue gear. That's the rule for this run, but that's the whole point, is to handicap yourself in these runs. I could have went the full distance and went blue armor, blue gear, but I'll tell you why I'm not doing that. And it's very simple, because you can't run 2 gun mods in your gauntlets on blue gear. Now I could just run a blue helmet, blue chest plate, blue boots, blue cape, and then put on a legendary gauntlet, so that at the very minimum I can run 2 mods. But at the end of the day, it's not a full true blue gear setup at that point, because you haven't to use a legendary gauntlet. So I just went for blue weapons rather than blue armor and weapons, just blue weapons, because of that fact. If we could put weapons in, if we could put champion mods in the weapons like we used to, then I would optimize for the full blue gear setup, but as I said, you can't. So I'm just explaining to you why I didn't go that route. We took out the second blight first, as that gives us more room to work with these unstoppables. It takes away all the taken pools around that area, right? So if you do have to push back, like I am now, then if I went, you know, down the other street, then I wouldn't need to worry about any of the taken energy that's on the floor, whatever it is. So with the unstoppables, we really need to optimize our damage, because our loadout is a bit odd. The fusion rifle's good, but it isn't really good ammo wise. We have got scavengers to match that on our boots and things, and the ammo finders, but again, it's not the best fusion in the world, but it is a rapid fire frame, so that's one thing, and it's got liquid coils. So that's kind of insane that it's got liquid coils. The bow is surprising, but it does continually overload champions because it's got Archer's Tempo. That's the only reason, and it's a precision frame bow. So it's got a lot of things going for it. Despite that it hasn't got frenzy or anything like that, you can still continually overload these champs. You'll see that footage when I get to it. Finish off this last Sort Bowl, pick up our elemental wells for our super regen, because it's very key. This run is sort of manufactured to the point where everything needs to be done, and just so, if not, the run's a wipe. So like having my super at a certain point, having a grenade at a certain point. This is where, obviously I'm not advising people to do this run, but I'm just explaining that the more you handicapping yourself in a run, the more strats become very specific to exactly what you're doing. This is very true for speedrunning. If you speedrunning Grandmasters as well, whether it be solo or team, the strat becomes to a precise run. Everything has to be timed and exactly right. This is why you've got a long ladder to climb. If you've only soloed a couple of Grandmasters, you've got loads more skill to come, right? Then there's the challenge runs, right, that you've got to do. Then there's speed runs you've got to do, and there's all that stuff. So just because you solo one Grandmaster, that's not you done. You still have to keep going over and over each week, getting better. And then once you're competent on the exotic runs, where you're using Anarchy or you're using Wither Horde runs, and you're like doing those runs all the time, really good. Stop using those powerful exotics, start using worse weapons. Maybe don't put on any exotics. Then you go down, you scale down. But as I said, I don't expect the average player to be doing blue gear runs. Obviously, there's not much point to it, is there? You're not going to get more loot because of that. In actual fact, you're going to get less loot because the run's going to take longer. Right, so I understand that, but I'm just explaining. This actually increases your solo skill over time if you do stuff like this. So in the long run, it actually helps you, because when, like I say, a new dungeon comes out, which is a new dungeon coming out, stuff like that, or if you're underpowered in activity, you've got a lot more experience about you in that solo environment to do well. Whereas if you're just playing in teams all the week, I mean, I'm not going against people playing in teams. It is Destiny. You are meant to play Destiny in a fire team, right? I understand that. But I'm just saying, when it comes down to soloing something and you're complaining because you can't solo it, it might be because you're just not playing enough solo. It's like anything, any sport or anything in the world. If you want to get good at it, you've got to do it every week over and over. No excuse. You can't just say, well, this week I can't be bothered. This week it's this week it's that. No, you need to be on it, on the game. You need to be on the game, practicing what you need to practice each week. It's end of discussion. And that way, you're going to be prepared for what's next to come. That's what the elite players do in this game. They're continually giving themselves challenges, especially when the game is dry. That's when you know someone's really serious about Destiny. Those types of people who are just continually playing and getting better and better and better, and you multiply that over years, and that's how you're getting your top tier players. I'm not saying I am, I'm saying the other players that you see do crazy things that they do. This champion here, as you can see, he enraged, but we are standing in a position where if that does happen, we've got a bit of cover to work with. So you can see that I'm taking this champion, these both double overloads from this box. If you haven't troubles with these overloads, the problems that could be is that you're taking them from way further back than what you need to. So there's a bus behind, like there's way back. There's like a broken down bus or whatever. You can take the champs from there, but you don't need to really. And if you're not succeeding because you're way back there, then you push up to the box. As long as you learn the strafe, these overloads won't kill you. And I'm sure that if you have a better bow than what I'm using right now, have a Biting Winds with explosive payload, or even a legendary bow with something on it, Frenzy, Vorpal, it's going to be better than the bow that I'm using right now. And I'm still doing just fine with this bow, and it's blue. So it just shows that it's the position and it's not the weapon always. I'm going to optimize this section here by doing a nade and pushing up on the solar knights and just using the super. Rather than taking this slow in this room, I wanted to get it over with. And you can safely do that with a super. So as I say, if you're going to run a Dawnblade run, which bottom tree Dawnblade is the best class for Lake of Shadows solo, in my opinion, in terms of just consistency. There is classes that can do it way faster, like there's a Titan setup going around at the minute with middle tree hammers. And you can complete the full run in like 15 minutes or less. Okay, with one phase in the boss solo as well. So that's the best setup if you know what you're doing, but 9 times out of 10 a player's not going to be able to do that run. Only the expert top tier players will. So for, you know, everyone else, including me, this is your next best class, the bottom tree Dawn, because it's really good on solar shields. There's loads of those. It's really good for damage output. It's really good for the boss and Blights. So it's got everything going for it. So that's why, as I say, I'm recommending this class. Just taking these unstoppables a bit at a time. This fusion rifle's suffering from range, you saw. It's got no range at all on it. What I'm trying to do is bait this champion into this corridor. Once he does that, we can get a finisher kill. We got protective light to kick in, but we get a protective light back off the champion. That's how strong this fire and ice build is. The fact that you can just keep getting protective lights, and I can get them off all the shields that I break. This setup is really good, and it's a system with the whole setup itself. Once the champion's taken out, we'll take out the sniper and then the sounds. Well, actually, no, the sniper, then the phalanxes. That's generally what I do. But the phalanxes hadn't pushed me, so I optimized here, done a nade to my left. Because the quicker I do a nade on those sounds to my left, the quicker the nade will stop all the duplication. And that means it frees up a side. Right, it frees up that side, that platform. So when I move over to that platform, I expect to see no sounds. Whereas if the longer you leave it, the more sounds will be over there, and the less likely that you will take them out. However, with this build, because of how the Dawn Chorus and the burn is working, it's just setting off all the other sounds for the burn damage. So it just killed them all, essentially. There was 2 sounds that got away, unfortunately, that's fine. It's actually more opportunity at ammo. If you let the sounds duplicate over and over, and you're low on ammo, right? So say you kill 5 and you leave 1 left. Leave him up, let him duplicate, because even though the duplicate copies, there's another chance at special ammo, it's another chance at heavy. So it's actually good that way, you can farm up ammo off them. So now we'll deal with this outside section as we sort of always have done. We'll deal with the first overload on the perch, then the 3 snipers at the back of the room, then there'll be another overload on the bridge. Then we jump down, get the sounds below me that are duplicating as we speak, inside the building. Then we deal with the solo knight, and then the champions, in that order. If you do it in that order, it's the easiest way of doing it. Rather than overcommitting to like a champ, where the snipers, or maybe running over there with a super and trying to take out the snipers and the knight, it's not going to work unless you like know exactly what you're doing. It's not. So you're best off just doing it like this. Take out the first overload, then take out the snipers. One of the snipers will try to snipe you. Just depends on how close. These snipers have a range drop off, right? So sometimes they will from this position. It's all subtle. It's all very subtle, the positioning. Like, you can stand a few meters forward and the whole thing changes. The sniper shooting at you, the knight can actually start shooting at you up here. Stuff like that. You start jumping around, aggro and adds, that's where you get, you know, your issues. This bow starts to suffer here. You can see I don't think I actually charged my overload bow properly there. That's why the champ enraged. That's what you don't want happening. But again, you see that where I stood, because I stood to this wall here, even though he enraged, I had a plan B, I strafed left. If I was standing too far forward and then try to strafe into the wall, I would be dead there. So that's why we stand where we stand, because there's always a plan B for it. Rather than just expecting, assuming that this champ will be fine, he won't enrage, he won't do anything. You know, don't always assume that. Unless you know for definite. Like, obviously I'm using a bow that's 1320. It's not... You can't infuse blue gear. I don't think you can... Actually, I think you can. You can infuse blue gear. I can't remember now, to be honest. But they're obviously 1320. And, as I said, the bow... It's less consistent than what a standard... What one of my standard bows would be. You know, like the explosive head bows. Or the Vorpal or the Frenzies. So... There is going to be a bit more things happen with these champs than usual for me. So I knew that going into it. So with these sounds, it's weird how this little mini phase, if you like, works. There'll be a couple push out to you on this outside area, and there'll always be 2 or 3 scions stay back. Some push, some don't. What my goal is to get a nade on them to get that fire explosion going, but they all retreated, which was unfortunate. So never push these scions. The scions you can underestimate. They do melt you, and a 1 melee off them will almost kill you. The perfect resilience stuff for this GM is tier 4 resilience with solar damage resistance and concussive dampener. That's the perfect sweet spot resilience that you'll get, because the tier 4 resilience will stop you from being sniped one shot off an overload champion without having to run sniper damage resistance. You don't need to run it if you run tier 4 resilience. The concussive dampener will help out against knights, any splash damage, like this knight hit me now, you saw that. And the overload enraged, because I used my super to track the knight, but some of the shots were going looping round the wall to the overload, and the overload isn't overloaded, so he enraged. Now what saved me there? The concussive dampener, which I was just talking about. If I hadn't had concussive dampener on there and my resilience was maybe lower, or my resilience was tier 3 in this, but you need tier 4. Actually on this I wasn't super happy with my setup, but I needed the tier 10 discipline, so I sacrificed a bit of resilience. But the concussive dampener, as you saw, helped. And the soul damage resistance will help out against the knights. What we're doing here is stunning the overload to get a better angle. It's all about angles with these champs, and I like to take them from here because you always have sort of a good view on the champ. Now the overload might get in the way of the unstoppable. If that happens, then maybe commit to the overload. The only problem is sometimes when there's 2 champs up, the overload will retreat a little bit. He'll be less likely to push you if there's an unstoppable up. That's what I've found. So I like to take the unstoppable first, but ended up working out that I just took out the overload anyways. He ended up actually not retreating, so I was surprised at that. So I just took out the overload first. And same again, we just use this cover and just strafe bow kill the champ. This rocket's really good as well because it has field prep, so for as far as a blue rocket goes, it's really good because it's got the field prep. Any rocket you have is literally exceptional for solo play with the field prep, or maybe any linear fusion like Tarantula field prep. Why is the field prep so good? Well, because you get an increased reload when you're crouched, which is easy to do. That doesn't mean to say that you're just going to crouch slowly then reload. You know, you can use the crouch. You can sort of crouch, reload, and then start running. Okay, that animation will start. You can then start running somewhere. As long as you reload while you crouch, so that just means just crouch for like half a second, get the reload, and then start running wherever you need to run. You know what I mean? You don't have to remain crouched. Not only that though, is field prep has a couple of unique properties. It increases the reserves, number one. It stacks with the scavenger and the ammo finders that you use on your helmet and your boots. So say for example I ran 2 rocket scavengers with a field prep. That's going to stack all together. Scavengers stack. Ammo find scavengers don't stack. You only run 1 scavenger now. That because there's so many changes in this game recently, I forget. Only 1 scavenger will work on your boots, but that will stack with the field prep. Whereas we used to have 2 scavengers stack, which also would stack with field prep. It's the ammo finders that do work together. They still work together. It's the scavengers that don't. So this unstoppable, we're trying to bait him in these corridors as best as possible. I've done a really good job of that, to be honest. I was super happy because the knight never even saw us, which was the goal. So I took out all the ads, and the knight wasn't sure where we was, and that's just because of immediately coming in this room, nading the goblins, the 3 goblins. If you nade those, take those out, that's good, because that means the unstoppable won't be immune. You can take out the thrall, they're easy, they push you, the goblins don't. The goblins just want to make the champion immune. Then the champion will push you, if you aggro him, into that corridor, and then you can just do all your DPS from there. And that, you've just dealt with a scenario that's difficult. That opening of that door is difficult, but it isn't if you deal with things quickly as soon as you come in here. Because once, it's one of those things, once you come in here, you've aggroed the ads. That's it. And you don't have much power against that unless resetting the room. If you want to know how to reset a room in any sort of strike or Grandmaster, if there's a door or an opening where you need to sort of fight from and it's a very tight door and you're having issues that way, then just retreat to the next room, wait a minute or 2, and then go back. The ads will get bored of you and it resets the room so you can start fighting again, sort of thing. Like Holless-IV, think of that one, the first door that you come to where you got the overload and the unstoppable. Obviously they spam you quite a lot. You can just reset that room, go all the way back. There's loads of instances of that in strikes. So we've took out the Solar Knight from here, which was ideal. We didn't have much aggravation off him. This is where the blue gear run's going to hinder me a bit, just for ammo wise. Which is why we really need to manage ammo. Okay, that's why I didn't go with, like, you know, enhanced ashes to assets and things like that, because at that point that's not giving you enough of a, in the solo world, right, because that's the world I live in, you need to really optimize ammo. There's not generally, your build won't overweigh a weapon. The weapons are more important than a build, like 9 times out of 10. Unless it's like top 3 Voidwalker with controversial, or you know, what else would be an example? Or Night Stalker, 100% mobility, you know, although that's getting sort of nerfed. Things like that. Obviously that build is overwhelmingly powerful, that to spec into it is useful to do that. But if you're on a class where it's got everything going for it anyways, like Dawnblade, you don't really need to spec into it. The main thing I would say specing into is the grenade. The grenade is insane now, what it does. And the super's insane, but don't spec for intellect. Don't be specking 100%. When I see people specking for intellect in PvE, I don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and who's told you to do that. Use Font of Wisdom. That is your free intellect right there. Right, so the way I look at it is, right, okay, you've got triple 100 stat builds, that's fine, right? But do you need it? No, you don't, because all you need is 100% recovery and then a secondary stat to cover that, wherever your playstyle is. Mine's discipline. Okay, I'm always 100% recovery and then as high discipline as I can get. That's my sort of setups. Never optimize for intellect. PvP different, but obviously all that's changing because of the game's changing in terms of cooldowns, and all the supers are in different tiers and all that stuff. So there's things changing. So, but that's what my goal really is on it. Team play is different, okay? It's completely different. So you can't apply what I'm saying to you now in a team and say, well, he said this, right? That's different. In a team, you might want to start running power preservation, the stasis helmet mod, and really optimize orb generation with your teammates. Because in your as a solo player, you're not really optimizing orbs, okay? Not to the degree of making 10 orbs for yourself, right? Because you can't pick up your own orbs from your own super. You can pick up your masterwork orbs, right? But that's little to nothing compared to what somebody could generate you 7, 8 orbs. So that's why I'm saying there's team, fire team world, and the solo world. The solo world's completely different. Okay, this game is completely different solo-wise to its team play. right? And that's why builds and things and perks and mods, it all changes depending on what you're doing, right? It's all there's no one rule, okay? It just depends on what you're doing. What we want to do is spawn kill this knight. Now what you saw there was that, why did the knight's shield not go back up? I threw one nade and he gets half HP, clears out all he adds, and his shield stays off. Why is that? Because of the burn damage from Dawn Chorus. The burn damage, I haven't timed it, but it extends the burn damage insane. Like, it lasts for so long. But that was so good, that, because if his shield went back up, I would have to re-weight a grenade and go again, because I haven't got a solar weapon. I've got arc, fusion, void, heavy. So the nade literally done all the work for me there. All I had to do then is re-peek shoot with the bow and take that knight, because that knight is a nightmare. I can tell you, he's a nightmare, especially if you get those goblins. Because what the knight will do is retreat a little bit. The goblins will go in front of him, or sorry, behind him. So you literally got a knight immune, and you can't hit the goblins. And if you peek shoot in his solo attack for like a second, and you got caught off guard by that, then you're dead. That's why we run the solar resist, because that's a panic moment. And so if you do need to retreat out of the flames, at least the solar resist will give you an extra maybe half a second to get out of that, so it doesn't kill you. And then you've also got your protective light on top of that to help you with it. That's why, pardon me, that's why we're not running like high energy fire, things like that, because we're not speed running it. This obviously isn't a speed run, because we're handicapping ourselves in a different way. This is a different type of thing. Now we'll take out the Void Wizard. This rocket launcher has tracking on it. It's got tracking built into it. So not only is it a blue rocket with field prep, it also has tracking on it. Okay. If you want a rocket launcher similar to what I'm using, like in Legendary format, then that's Royal Entry. Royal Entry has inbuilt tracking. It has the field prep, you can have that on it. It has lasting impression, you can have that on it. But I prefer Clown Cartridge for when I'm doing stuff like this. I like to double rocket champs. But in a raid, I would probably prefer the lasting impression. So obviously you keep different rockets for different things. It's just like with anything else in the game. You keep different things for different activities. We use a solar nade on those bunch of thrall there. Just jump up in the air. When you're doing something like that, don't do it with sounds, because they can shoot you. That's different. And they can really melt you down without you knowing. But with the melee thrall, they can't hit you in mid-air, can they? Because they haven't got a range attack. So you just nade them. The nade will deal with everything. You just jump up in the air so that they can't get you. Because it'll round them up into your nade as well. That's another thing. Whereas if you nade and stand, what they're going to do, they're going to teleport out your nade. So knowing little things like that is optimizing the whole thing. Another thing, there's scions here, so we use a nade and then hide. Why are we doing that? Well, we're not doing that because we're scared. We're doing that because the ads get confused. They can't see where you are, so they just stand in your nade. Whereas if I naded around that corner and then stood, and then maybe started using bow shots, they're going to duplicate. Some of them are going to get out of my nade, and I'm going to take damage. So that little subtle positioning of either going behind cover or not doing that changes the whole thing. And you could wipe. If you're not quick enough, you're a bit lazy on that bit, you could wipe. Very easy to do so. So you see this pillar here that I've taken this champion from. If you take this champion from this pillar, it makes it so much easier, because if you try and take the champion from the stairs, there's no strafing capabilities on there, because the stairs are tight knit. There's no cover there on the stairs, right? So he can snipe you. So you need to find some cover. So getting a pillar like this where I'm at, right? It just means I can strafe shoot. Be careful to not enrage this champion, whatever you do, because even though you can get some cover like this, I would say he could still hit you if you enrage him, because it's splash damage. I'm not saying it would kill you. You will maybe survive it, but you're best off just make sure your bow shot is always overload. Always check. I mean, I go by the audio cue of overload shot. That's why it's on there, to tell you that it's procced. But if you're too fast with your bow, it won't be classed as an overload shot, and that's how you'll enrage an overload champion. So you really need to be, so don't be too focused on getting your shots as quickly as possible, you know, like rushing it. So look, I'm taking my time with this champ. It's just like, right, wait for shot, charge it, and just keep doing that. I have to really actually be on point, because this bow, as I said, it hasn't got the utility of Vorpal, Frenzy, stuff like that, but it has got Archer's Tempo. I would say if this bow didn't have Archer's Tempo, it wouldn't work. For example, I tried, I think it was Overload Hand Cannon. It wasn't this season, it might have been last or the season before. I was wanting to do a blue gear GM run on Saber, I believe. I was trying all these blue hand cannons, right, and none of them would work on the Overload captains, and it was a shame because of the rate of fires. All of them are bad, so that particular season was really bad for sort of the blue gear. But because we got Overload bow again, I knew that this bow, I've already used it in GM, so I knew it would sort of do it. Which, this is another thing that I'm very confused about, right? This is a blue bow, and it can continually overload champions, and Wishender can't. Don't know if anyone's tried Wishender, because I really want to try it. I really wanted to have it in a video, because it does optimize stuff for Taken, right? And it's got like an explosive head type thing on it. It's not called explosive head, I know that. It's called broadhead or something like that. But that bow's amazing, but it doesn't work on the champs on GM level, which is a shame. Right, I've already tried it because I was wanting to do a Wishender run a couple of weeks ago. Couldn't do it because of that. Yet this blue bow can do it. So I don't know why that's a thing. What we're doing here with the Blight, so obviously if you haven't seen my Dawnblade runs, we're getting the Blight one shot. Now I actually got the Blight, I actually nearly took the Blight out. I was very lucky there. So I would leave a little bit more on that orb than what I did. Because what you can do is optimize your jumps. You can optimize your jumps without a boss pressuring you to get the jump. Okay, and it's daylight time for me, so things are on my side. If it's night time, things will be a little bit harder for you. And the cycle is 30 minutes. I don't recommend you wait 30 minutes because that's going to be age. That's going to be a long time. You know, you could actually redo another run by that time. So I would just take your time and make sure you know, make the jump. If you miss the jump, Phoenix Dive to negate boss damage, to negate fall damage, because that's the problem you're gonna have. That's why Dawnblade's so good. And not only that, the nade's gonna penetrate the Blight, as you just saw. So I was free to jump up here, and then I can optimize my damage. I'm set up for the exploit, which it is an exploit, which I've obviously told a lot of people about how to do it, you know, and things like that. So now it's just a case of, you know, just kill the boss, essentially. We used a super there, that nearly done a third damage, which was really good. With the way this works, as I see a lot of people sort of using the bottom tree Dawnblade, but not using the right setups and things, you must use Dawn Chorus, okay? If you're going to go the Dawnblade route, it's just like, think of Void Walker. I think we all know with the Void Walker, you go counter-reverse holds, right? That's just the star setup for that build. But for Dawnblade, it's the same thing. The star thing for it is the Dawn Chorus. There's other setups, there's loads. You could even go Sunbraces. Sunbraces is a really good piece. Like a really good exotic. There's all sorts of exotics you could go. There's so much variety for the Warlock. But the star exotic is Dawn Chorus. Just like for the Thunder Crash Super for Titan. He's the Curious Fallen Star. When you're doing on GM difficulty and things, just go with number one, like I say. And if you haven't got Dawn Chorus, which I know a lot of people haven't, then farm it up via your lost sectors. Farm up a roll for it, because as I say, Dawnblade is becoming top 3 in terms of being able to solo Grandmasters. It's like in the top 3 classes, and it's going to go up because because things are getting nerfed as of December. So the pack is going to be different. But Dawnblade's got a utility. Just look at it. It's got an amazing super. It can even kill champions in a 1 cycle after the shield break on a barrier. Things like that. It's insane ad capabilities. Its super extends when you kill ads. The grenade clears out waves and waves of ads because of the burn damage. It chains to other enemies. The melee's pretty good, but obviously you don't want to be meleeing too much in GMs. And it has Phoenix Dive, which is life support, basically. If anyone remembers the perk life support from Destiny 1, it's essentially just, well, it's not the same as that, but it gives you health regeneration via an ability called the Phoenix Dive, which when you jump in the air, and then activate your class ability, you will dive down to the floor. It's an ability, just like Icarus Dash on top 3 Dawnblade. But you're not tapping it like that, you're holding it. So you've got to hold it, so you jump in the air, and the higher you are, the more health regen you get. Okay? That's how it works. But if you just do a slight hop, even that can be the difference. If you're saying behind cover, you're getting pressured from nades and this, that, and the other. You can just do a slight hop behind cover, activate your ability. And it can override togetherness, attrition, mods like that. So this is why I said it's becoming one of the best classes for survivability, for damage output, builds, anything you can think of. Like I said, it's one of the best. Shadebind is obviously still good, but it's getting a slight adjustment, and I don't know how that adjustment's going to play out for the turret, because I know they've said what it's going to do, but I need to see that in real time and see how long does it take you to get your nade back. Okay, with likes of bomber and optimizing your class setup, you know, 100% discipline. Are you still going to get turrets back after, you know, a few seconds? It's not going to be as good as it is now. I just want to see how good it is going to be when the change is made. As you can see, I'm just doing the same thing, just doing damage when I can, using my nade. This is where bomber helps out a lot, because every time I'm nading, I can use a Helm to get more grenade energy. I'm using my super when possible as well. I'm due a super coming up in a couple of seconds, which I'm going to do. If the boss does get tethered, this super will bypass immunity. All supers do, apart from bubble. Bubble won't, but like if you use any sort of super, it will bypass tether damage. So if say barriers or servitors are tethering adds, you can super them and go past that. This was a really good super. Ended up chaining all the adds down below. You get a unique effect as well happening on the boss room, which is kind of cool with the solar. But the boss did back up, so some of that super damage he didn't get affected by, unfortunately. So that was unfortunate, but that's fine. It just means there's less adds shooting at us, which I haven't even talked about the knights. So the solar knights, obviously they spawn linked to the boss's HP. Sometimes a knight will spawn in middle and spam you. This didn't happen on this run. It's just RNG whether that happens. Even if you don't aggro the knights, sometimes a knight, one of the knights, because there's like 4 knights, one of them will spawn into middle and start shooting at you. If that happens, then whatever setup you're using, I would recommend taking down at least that knight that's spamming you. Okay? Because they can kill you from up top. Their solar flames can hit the platform and kill you. Without, you know, because you're in a safe place. You feel as though you're really safe. You know, it's like you're not paying attention. Next thing you know, a solar knight can kill you. Which, when this GM first came out this season and this exploit came out, it did happen to me on one run. I was very surprised by it, because obviously this is kind of a newish one, right? So I was like, oh, okay, so the knights can actually take you out, and you can move around all the way around the edge of this building. So if you hear that knight charge up his solar attack, then you need to strafe as soon as possible, just out with that flames. The fusion rifle didn't. It worked out really good, but it didn't work out good for boss damage here. But obviously we optimized the bow mainly, grenades and super. This week is Hothead and Hung Jury to farm weapons for anyways, but that was the solo Grandmaster on this with blue weapons. Hope you enjoy, thank you.